This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Sugar, honey, honey.
Welcome back to Boomer Life here on CIL 650. That was my personal favorite R&B singer in the whole wide world. That's Wilson Pickett with Sugar, Sugar. Yeah. Dr. Paul Zickler, medical director of YesWellness.com, is back on the program today. And we're going to talk a lot about sugar throughout the balance of the program. But just before we get to the sugar stuff, Dr. Zickler, when you were with us on the show last time, we had a moment here ago about talking about flu shots. And on the program, we had a fair bit of time talking about the flu and colds and all of that sort of thing because it's the season, it's that time of year, and you had a really handy-dandy little concoction that you recommended, not the kind that you go out and buy at the drugstore, but when you feel that cold coming on, you don't need Don Cherry or some celebrity to tell you what to do. But typically we all have a kind of a little thing that we do. Oh, I'm getting a cold. So I go get echinacea, or I drink tea with rum in it, or whatever. Well, Dr. Zickler has a slightly different approach. Would you remind us of what your combination is?
Yeah, so I've got a really easy recipe, and but the recipe is dependent on how you live your life every other day besides the day that you think you've got a cold.
Okay.
So, we're going to talk about sugar. So diet. Diet is your natural medicine. So you've got to sort of empower your life to make the right dietary decisions about food. Food is the medicine.
Right.
And getting enough sleep and reducing stress. And all those things work together, and exercise. So if you look at those three components.
What you're suggesting, though, is if you eat poorly, you don't get enough sleep, and you're stressed out of your mind, you're a perfect victim for the flu.
For every day.
Right.
You're going to be susceptible every day as opposed to having minimal symptoms at all.
Okay.
Okay, so the recipe
feel it coming on. Oh, brother, I've been there before. I know what's coming next.
And the thing is, you got to get it at the beginning. So your best chance of really actually eliminating it is when you get the very first symptoms, whether it's that little tickle in your throat,
right,
little soreness, or the runny nose, or the starting to sneeze, and you have to pay attention to it. And so people that are stressed and otherwise, sleep deprived, they don't recognize it. They think that's their normal symptoms.
That's right.
And so
you little off their game, huh?
So you have to recognize the symptoms right away.
Okay.
And so then if you do that, you need to start taking the vitamin D, which I suggest you take every day, but you really whack up the doses. So the vitamin D, you need about 20,000 international units, and that sounds like a one whack of a dose.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to tell you that's a very conservative dose when you look at the literature and the science behind vitamin D. But I chose that amount because I thought it was people wouldn't be threatened by it, especially if you use the vitamin D drops, because 20 little drops is a lot easier than taking these 20 pills 3 times a day.
Oh, boy.
So 3 times a day.
Oh.
For 3 days.
Okay.
All right? Along with that, you're going to bump up the normal vitamin C that you're taking to probably 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. And you can do that for 5 days.
Okay, so vitamin D, 20,000 international units. Vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams. Oh, both of those 3 times a day.
3 times a day.
And there's one other ingredient, isn't there?
There's a zinc lozenge.
Zinc
lozenges. So the zinc lozenges, you take 15 milligrams 3 times a day. And you can take that during the whole time that you have cold symptoms. And I'd say for a simplicity of that, 5 days. So
okay.
3 days of the real high doses of vitamin D, then you go back to your maintenance dose.
Okay.
And the maintenance dose for an average Caucasian is probably between 4,000 and 6,000 international units. Someone that's brown should be probably taking 6,000 to 8,000 international units as a maintenance. So don't forget to go back to your maintenance dose.
Okay.
Don't just stop.
So this isn't just a one-off when you get the cold. This is enhancing the daily intake.
The big doses
are
just for 3 days.
Okay.
And so that's what you do. Now, equally important to those products which are antioxidants and also actually affect the replication of viruses in your throat like the zinc does.
Okay.
The virus is in your upper respiratory system, so in your nose, in the back of your throat, and your pharynx, and your soft palate.
So when you feel a cold coming on, it's still in your head.
It's still there. It's still there.
Okay. It hasn't gone down into your body yet.
It takes you about 3 days, 3 to 5 days to sort of really spread, if it's not controlled, to spread to your sinuses or to your air tubes, your bronchioles,
Sure.
or into your lungs. So you've got that time to really try to eradicate it. You're already taking the medications which will help doing that, and in really boosting up your immune system with the vitamin C and vitamin D. So then you want to irrigate your nasal passages and your sinuses and your throat. So with your throat, it's very easy. You take an 8-ounce glass of water, which we have here on our desk, and take a quarter level teaspoon of salt. A quarter level teaspoon, which is not very much.
No, it's not.
You mix it in and you taste it. It has a little salty taste. More salt isn't going to make it any better. It's a mild salt solution.
It should be warm water, by the way?
You can do it because it's easier. It's more comfortable to do that.
Because you want to gargle with this stuff,
You want to
right?
gargle with it.
Warm,
and
lightly salted water.
That's right, and it dissolves the salt a lot faster.
Okay.
Lightly salted, and you gargle 3 times a day.
So you can
remember
do that.
three times.
So you can do all of this vitamin business and then have a gargle and then
do that.
Move on.
And it's really important to gargle the whole glass of water.
Okay.
And then you can irrigate your nostrils. And it's hard to take all that stuff to work. You can certainly gargle at work, but the nasal, you can probably do it in the morning and doing it in the evening. And you can start if it's
Is
really
this like one of those misty things that you can just...
Well, you can start with that. As simply saline is just a little mistimeter that
Okay.
you want to squirt, and squirt enough to make it and inhale it in your sinus passages and your nasal passages.
And it'll make you sneeze. And all sorts
Yeah,
of
and then
stuff.
you're going to blow your nose gently
Right.
and blow it evenly so that you're not blocking one nostril and the other, which just forces everything back into your sinuses.
Right.
Now, that helps a little bit. If you're going to be a little bit more effective, you can get sort of the sinus irrigation system, and there's 2 kinds. One is just a bottle with a sniffing tube on top, and it's got a saline solution just like what you gargled with.
Okay.
And you inhale that. It gives you a bigger stream of normal
But you still give it
saline.
a squeeze, and it's
Yeah,
a
you
little
give it a
puff.
squeeze, and you can sort of
Right.
regulate the amount that you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
And you tilt your head back and sniff it in, and then you can actually feel it going into your sinuses and down the back of your throat.
Right.
And then you equally blow your nose. And as you'll know that you're going to get some discharge, you can do it a couple more times till the discharge is clear. And so you can just imagine doing that as well as the gargle, irrigating all those tissues that are being bombarded by the virus,
Okay.
and as well as hydrating them to make them healthy. So you keep those mucosa healthy to have their own antibodies kicking in to kill this virus that's there.
So while this, because you were just saying, in the first day or 2 or 3, the virus is still in your head. It hasn't descended into your body yet, and it's possible to just kill the darn thing before it gets into the rest of your body.
Exactly.
If you do this method of attack and really go at it.
And
right?
even still, even if you do get a little bit of symptoms, they're going to be just upper respiratory. So you may have a little runny nose, a little bit of sneezing, a little bit of sore throat. That may last 5 or 7 days, and that goes away.
Sure.
You're not left with this ongoing gucky stuff coming from your nose or expectorating it and feeling sick and lousy.
Okay, so that again, it's a 3-day attack program that you really must you have to repeat regularly and do it for the 3 days, and it should take care of biz.
Yeah.
Okay, but you also mentioned as part of an ongoing health routine, the diet is really is the best medicine. Your own what you intake on your food is the best medicine you could possibly consume.
Yeah, and that's we've stressed that over and over, that food is medicine, and that it's 80% of what keeps you healthy is food, and so it's really important. So one of the things that in that food category, the first thing on my list is sugar.
Okay.
And sugar, what happened 50? We were talking about 50 years ago.
Yeah,
so what
comparing
happened,
ourselves to our parents.
Yeah, well, so what happened 50 years ago? With the first TV dinner, right? So they made the first TV dinner and the first Campbell's soup. Well, they were probably not too bad to begin with, but as more people got to the convenience, oh man, instead of making a really good chicken soup that we can make from the carcass of our chicken that we had and really put the vegetables and make it healthy.
Right.
Oh, now I can just open a can,
Pass
throw
the
it in
can
the pot,
opener.
and,
Right.
And with life becoming a little bit more complicated, kids doing their stuff, it's easier just to throw something on the stove and
Sure
it's
it is.
done.
Yep.
Or put the TV dinner in the oven and it's done. And so as the fast food sort of industry got going, of course, business is business. Profit margin is profit margin. So they looked at cheaper alternatives. So maybe not the best chicken or the best vegetables, or if they had to put some spices in, they put more salt in it because it makes it more appetizing.
Right. And there's a preservation element to
salt
too, isn't
there? So they put in way too much salt.
Right.
Which is probably number 2.
This is a consequence of popularity, though, isn't it? As more and more people began to demand the product, they had to make it in larger batches, and so they had to find ways to preserve those large batches.
And the other thing they did was to make things, because they took a lot of the fat out of food, because that sort of anti-fat fad was starting, they had to make it more palatable, more tasteful. So then they took everything out and then started adding things back in to make it taste better. And so they made it taste better by putting more carbohydrates and sugar. And they used the corn syrup because it was really cheap.
Right.
And so that's high fructose corn syrup. So not only are you adding sugar, but you're adding, out of all the sugars, fructose is even worse than just your plain glucose sugar.
Okay, why is that?
Well, it's metabolized differently.
Oh.
It's metabolized differently. It's metabolized through your liver, and it goes directly into fat storage. And so you're building up your fat. Basically.
So and you see, I read an article, in fact, over the weekend, a few days ago, about a person who did an experiment where they were very lean diet person, and this person decided, I'm going to really pound on the sugar for a couple of weeks and see what sort of effects, because I don't eat a lot of sugar regularly. This is a young person, a university grad student doing a research project. A very lean, healthy person decides, I'm going to go nuts and I'm going to eat all the sugar my little body can stand for the next 2 weeks. And darn if he didn't put on a whole lot of weight, and right around the midsection.
Yeah, and his blood work went crazy.
Yeah.
So his cholesterol.
But the weight was almost instant.
Oh yeah, it's amazing how quickly it occurs.
Okay, so and that you would have to think that if sugar and sugars like the oses, the fructose, the glucose, and all the rest of those oses, if they can cause you to put on that kind of weight in that incredibly short period of time, it can't be very good for the rest of your metabolism. And I'm thinking about your heart, among other things.
Oh, absolutely. It's it's integrated though with the fats, and so the fats make you satiated. They sort of make you feel full.
Right.
For a longer period of time, along with proteins. And to make up for that, when they've taken it out of the food, you've craved more carbohydrates. So you crave more sugar, but also like the starches. So like the French fries, the potato chips, and grains in general. And then, of course, they started refining the flour to a large extent. So what can you remember the ads for Wonder Bread?
Right.
The square white bread. I mean, that was everywhere, right? And so as they become more and more processed, all the essential elements that were good for you are becoming more and more detrimental to you.
Well, the adjective, we're off on a flower tangent here, but I must follow up with this, because the adjective that is most popular in the retail level is enriched white flour, which means they've taken absolutely everything beneficial out of it and then put back a few token things.
Yes, yeah, that's right. The same with the refined sugar, refined salt. If you go back to the Himalayan salt, the Himalayan salt, which is unprocessed, with
some of it is almost
minerals.
Pink.
It's pink.
Yeah.
It's so it's you can have that. It's not detrimental. It's giving you minerals that you really need.
What about sea salt?
Sea salt is
becoming very popular too.
Yes, but you have to be careful. Some of it's processed as well.
Okay.
So it's certainly a lot better than the refined salt, but the Himalayan sort of untouched essential salt is much better.
Lots more still about sugar on this episode of Boomer Life with Dr. Paul Zickler, the medical director of YesWellness.com. And we'll continue our conversation after this quick timeout.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CIAL 650.